Mm.
And one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book was, I wanted to let people know who are just starting out in copywriting that even if you don't have, a 4-year degree in creative writing, or you didn't go to an ad school, or you didn't work at your student newspaper, like that's okay. Like you can still be a writer. It might happen a little bit later on for you. I mean, I didn't know what a copywriter was till I was 31. So like, but I look back at it now and it's like those years between 22 and 31, maybe I wasn't getting copywriting experience, but I was getting life experience.
Yeah.
And that life experience, whether I realize it or not, finds a home in my writing pretty much every single day.
Yeah, and I would imagine that, particularly copywriting, what you're trying to do, like there has to be a connection there, right? You need people to connect with what you're writing. There's probably the higher degree of like authenticity and genuineness, and it feels real to them, that what you're writing they can connect with on that level. The quote unquote, the better it is, right? The better the output of it. So that makes a lot of sense, that your ability to kind of tap into that, whatever it is, exactly to your point. It's not, you don't have to be something to do that. You just have to be who you are, which is kind of symbolic for life and kind of a beautiful sentiment if you think about it. But is that true? Is there a lot of authenticity that you think has to come with it if you're going to be an effective writer in any form?
Yeah. There's a great quote from another copywriter. His name's Andrew Bolton. He wrote a book called Copywriting Is, and copywriting is ... And then he's got like 30 little parables about what he's learned as a copywriter. And he says copywriting is a wink amongst screams. And I really, really like that because he says when you read a good piece of copy, you necessarily won't laugh out loud, but you'll kind of just smirk and kind of nod your head. And then you'll kind of go about, doing whatever it is you're doing. So it's kind of getting to the heart of the matter a little bit. And you kind of just want people to smile at it, hopefully. And I think I love that, a wink amongst screams. I think that's a good way for a copywriter to kind of stand out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it makes me think too, which I think I saw in your background that you have experience with this. When you said that, it made me think a little bit of a stand-up comic. That's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying to get people, maybe not literally wink, but that connection. It's that connection of like, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that is funny. Like that same moment. And, maybe it's different in copywriting or whatever, but it's all about that connection, that wink between screams. I like that. It's that connection between it all.
Yeah. There was a great Jeff Foxworthy used to say that, comedians look at the world just a little differently because, they'll see something or they'll hear something, and they could be at a red light, they could be at the supermarket, it doesn't matter. And for most people, we've got so much going on and it just goes in one ear, goes out the other. But the comedian will kind of capture it before it leaves their mind, and maybe they write it, maybe they text, just a couple words to themselves. Maybe they have a little notepad that they write it down, but they capture that moment, they mold it like Play-Doh, and then they show it to you. And I always thought that was cool because, like you just said, I think the best comedians, they just show us the most obvious things that are funny, but they just do it in such a simplistic way.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. I'm gonna get a little philosophical again because it's interesting to me. Like, what do you think? That wink between screams, that connection that the comedians find. Like, do you think, and same with copywriting, is it more for you or is it more for the audience? Like if you take the stand-up example, do you think that's more for the comedian to say like, I'm seeing this stuff and I want some validation that I'm seeing it accurately and it makes me feel good to have that? Or is it more, I see this, I want other people to see it too, because I think there's something in that. Like, who do you think it's more for at the end of the day?
I would probably lean towards the audience part of it. And Seinfeld always talks about that too, is, especially, if you're trying stuff out, and, even if it's just a new bit that's 2 or 3 minutes, usually you can tell pretty quickly if the audience gets it or not. And I think when I was doing stand-up, they said like, try a new bit like 3 times. Like if it falls flat on its face 3 times, you can probably throw it out. But if you get a couple laughs the first time, maybe some less laughs the second time, and it's kind of in the middle, like maybe you have something. Now it's just up to you, to kind of work on it a little bit. But I do think the audience is kind of the ultimate indicator.
Kind of has
I
to be,
think,
right?
yeah, and I think like, for a lot of comedians too, they will, have something, in their head like you described, and they'll tell themselves there's got to be other people who are seeing this.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be other people who are seeing the ridiculous nature of what's going on here, and it just can't be me. So I'm going to share this story and see if these people kind of share in my opinion, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it makes total sense, and it makes me think about like the courage, frankly, it takes to be an artist, whether it be a writer, a copywriter, a comedian, whatever it is, because you're kind of taking a leap of faith, like exactly like you just said. I think I know other people, or I think other people can relate to this, right? I'm sure when you're writing, that's what you're thinking. Like I bet you other people will connect with this, and it really is a big chance you're taking. You're putting yourself out there to where if it does fall flat, that could feel really personal, and that could feel like, ooh, that sucks. Like I thought I was better than that, or I thought, or whatever it was. Whereas you think of like more of a traditional job, if you're a lawyer in corporate, I'm more in the business world. It's kind of my traditional job. There's not as much risk. I mean, there's always risk, but it's not that risk. It's not that personal risk of like, hey, I'm putting myself out there. Is anybody with me? Does anybody, agree? Does anybody see it that way? And that's tough. Like writing a book, same thing, right? That's tough. That's a lot of courage that takes.